Good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Pratt, and as Electoral Area B Half Moon Bay Director for the Sunshine Coast Regional District Board, I will chair this public hearing. I would like to introduce SCRD Director Leonard Lee, who is in attendance as alternate chair, to hear your comments firsthand. SCRD Senior Planner Yuli Sale will introduce and state the intended purpose of the bylaws and answer any technical questions you may have concerning the bylaws. SCRD Recording Secretary Genevieve Dixon will be recording your comments this evening. For other staff members that we have present this evening that are assisting us, we have for our IT department, we have Bryce Feetonen. We have Julie Clark, Planner 1 and our Senior Planner, as well as Robert Brigden, who is a Planner 1 as well. And with that, I'd also like to acknowledge the Sunshine Coast Regional District is located on the traditional territories of the Squamish and the Sushalt First Nations, and we're very grateful to be here with you this evening. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to the board respecting matters contained in the proposed Sunshine Coast Regional District Egmont / Pender Harbour Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 708.2/2020 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 337.122/2020. The public hearing with bylaw amendments were advertised in the October 9th and October 16th editions of the Coast Reporter newspaper. In response to COVID-19 and in accordance with the BC Government Ministerial Order M192 to authorize local governments to hold public hearings electronically, this public hearing is being held electronically via Zoom and open to all members of the public. As SCRD is unable to comply with public health orders by holding in-person open meetings, the SCRD board has adopted a resolution for the continued use of electronic meetings without the physical presence of the public. This resolution describes the following measures being taken to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability in respect of the meeting. Number 1, notice of the public hearing and instructions on how to attend the meeting are advertised in the newspaper, SCRD website, and on social media. The electronic meeting allows the public to hear, speak, watch, and submit written comments. Technical support is provided to ensure all technical problems are resolved to enable accessibility of the meeting and related information. And written submissions by all other means continue to be accepted by the close of the public hearing. At this public hearing, any person present who believes his or her interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaws. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. It is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaws. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, except that they may speak again after those who have not previously spoken have had an opportunity to make a submission. Those who have registered on the speakers list will have the opportunity to speak first in the order of the list. The identity of persons who make written or verbal submissions will form part of the public record. When speaking, please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. Members of the board may ask questions following the presentation. However, the function of the board at this public hearing is to listen rather than to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws. If you pre-registered to speak, you will be called on by the chair. Please wait for your turn. If you did not pre-register but wish to speak, please raise your hand in the webinar to indicate that you wish to speak. If you've signed in from a PC device using the Zoom app, you can click/tap the raised hand button, and a member of staff will reach out to you in the chat to advise that you have been added to the speakers list. If you are dialed in on a telephone, Please press *9 to raise your hand and you will be added to the list, but we will only be able to identify you by your telephone number. And so when it's your turn to speak, the chair will say, the participant calling from 740-5555 is up next. Please listen for your phone number. Be patient. There may be a lot of speakers, but we will get to you. When the chair calls on you to speak by name or by your telephone number if you called in, you will be allowed to address the meeting. You will still have to unmute your microphone when prompted. On the Zoom app, mute, unmute is selected from the lower screen. On a telephone, the microphone is muted, unmuted by pressing *6, but will be unable to unmute until given the direction to do so. When the staff moderator lowers your hand to allow you into the webinar to speak, it often appears to disconnect, and it's only a momentary glitch. You do not need to log out and log back in again. Please begin by stating your full name and address for the record. If you do not, the chair will interrupt you and ask you to provide this information. We are required to collect it from everyone who addresses a public hearing. After you have spoken, we will lower your hand if you've not already done so yourself. If you wish to address the hearing again once everyone has had the chance to speak, please raise your hand again and we will follow the same procedure. After this public hearing has concluded, the board during a following open public meeting may, without further notice of hearing, adopt or defeat the bylaws or alter and then adopt the bylaws, providing that the alteration does not alter the use or increase the density. May I remind you that tonight is your opportunity for input on the bylaws and no further information can be received once the public hearing has concluded. Elected officials are not permitted to receive any communication or correspondence such as email, phone calls, or written submissions after the close of the public hearing. Any further submissions need to be directed to staff. And you can always do that via email this evening to planning.department@scrd.ca. I will now ask SCRD Senior Planner, Yuli Seo, to introduce and state the purpose of the proposed bylaws. Yuli, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Let me just share my screen. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, it's showing clearly, Yuli.
Okay, great. Okay, so BC Ferries has applied for those bylaw amendments to accommodate their terminal development plan at the Earls Cove terminal. The property BC Ferry occupies includes 3 parcels at Earls Cove, as you can see on this site plan. In spring and summer of this year, BC Ferry has conducted preliminary public consultation, and the application has been referred to the agencies for comments. And in September 2020, the SCRD board gave the bylaws first and second readings, and tonight is the public hearing in the process. So after the public hearing, the board may consider third reading of the bylaws and possible adoption of the bylaws. And the proposed amendments to the official community plan, the OCP, is to change the existing land use designation from non-designated area and residential to a marine transportation destination. And the proposed zoning amendments are to change the existing zoning for those parcels from R1, R2, and C1 to a new zone called M1, which means it's called a marine transportation zone. The other proposed zoning provisions, the permitted use will be a marine transportation facility, and auxiliary uses include office, retail, restaurant, mobile vendors, a caretaker's residence, service parking, and a park. And the commercial uses are limited to 20% of all the building floor areas, up to a maximum of 500 square meters. And the setback requirement is 5 meters from all parcel lines. And building limit is 14 meters for the building, 20 meters for the structure. And BC Ferry is proposing to increase to 25 meters. And fence is 2 meters, and parcel coverage is 45% of the lot. That's all I have in terms of in brief introduction for the bylaws, and I'll return the meeting back to the chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Yuli. Before, I'm just going to ask if there's any questions from our other director in attendance of our senior planner before we go into submissions from the public.
No, it was all clear to me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Director Lee. Okay, so with that, I'm going to call for a first time for submissions in the order of the speakers list. I'm going to look over to the speakers list, and right now we do not have anyone on there. I do know that we do have the applicant in the audience, so what I'm going to say is I'm going to ask the applicant if you'd like to have 3 minutes to speak first, and then we'll see if any other members of the public wish to speak.
Sure. I would definitely welcome the opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so Mr. Jacobson, you're going to state your name and address for the record and who you represent, and then go ahead with your speaking time, and I will ask our Bryce to set the timer, or and go ahead, Mr. Jacobson.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Mitchell Jacobson. I live at 2825 Prior Street in Victoria, BC. I'm the Assistant Manager of Terminal Development for BC Ferries. And yeah, first I'd like to thank Yuli for providing that background and overview of the proposed rezoning and OCP amendments. As noted, the purpose of the proposed amendments is to align the zoning and OCP at this terminal with the current and future uses on this site. In the past, as a Crown Corporation, we were exempt from local zoning bylaws, but since 2003, BC Ferries is a private entity and is required to follow the local zoning and OCP regulations and processes. So by rezoning at this point, we'll be able to undertake required terminal upgrades and projects over time as assets time out and require replacement, including some more urgent short-term projects around a new waiting room and washroom, as well as some traffic safety items. And then in the longer term, other elements such as a new berth once that times out. We're, as mentioned by Yuli, we're undertaking a concurrent terminal development plan for Earls Cove, and this plan will identify the long-term vision for the terminal in more specific detail, with implementation and phasing considerations as well. And also, as mentioned by Yuli, we have undertaken a number of engagement initiatives around both the OCP and rezoning amendment and the TDP process as well, including with the public, First Nations, and key stakeholders throughout. With this process, it has helped us to refine the proposed bylaws as they've been presented, as well as helped us develop and refine the terminal development concepts that'll help us achieve the long-term vision for this terminal. So really that's really all I had for now. I'd just like to thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jacobson. I'm going to look to my other director in the room first to see if he has any questions for Mr. Jacobson, as well as I'll remind any members of the public that are attending this meeting, if you would like to speak, and please make sure you electronically raise your hand so you can be acknowledged and put on the speakers list. So first up, Director Lee, any questions for Mr. Jacobson?
No, it was very clear again. Thank you, Mr. Jacobson.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. So do we have anyone else who would like to speak? Any members of the public that are there in our attendees list? Please electronically raise your hand. Okay, I have, would anybody else like to, this is the first time for submissions for the bylaw amendments for this public hearing. A reminder, if you would like to submit something in writing, it needs to be sent and received at the planning department prior to the end of this public hearing. You can email the planning department at planning.department@scrd.ca, and you're always welcome to say something verbally. Okay, so with that, I'm going to call a second time for further submissions for this public hearing. Mitchell or Courtney, is there anything that you'd like to say to add in? Our attendees in the waiting room, please, if you'd like to say anything, please raise your hand. Mitchell or Courtney, anything you'd like to add on this second round?
No, sorry, go ahead, Courtney, if you were.
Oh, I was just going to say, just in line with Yuli, I think.
Courtney,
yeah.
Sorry, I just need you to state your full name and address, please.
Sorry about that.
No
so Courtney Goslin, I'm at 1920 Patricia Avenue, and I represent ACOM.
Okay.
Working with Mitchell. So I don't have much to say other than, yeah, we would support what Yuli's presented there. And as he mentioned, we're looking to make one tweak to the height as proposed. And that's really just reflective of the towers that BC Ferries needs to accommodate. So really nothing to add other than everything's in line with what Yuli's discussed.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Courtney. Okay, anything else, Mitchell?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. I'm going to look to staff. I don't see anyone else on the speakers list. So I'm going to call a third and final time for further submissions. Last chance for this public hearing to submit any verbal. Okay, so with no further comments and no one raising their hand to speak, I will now declare the hearing is closed for the Sunshine Coast Regional District Egmont Pender Harbour Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 708.2/2020 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 337.122/2020. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and participation at this public hearing. This is certainly the shortest public hearing that we've had since in the last 2 years that we've been here, right, Director Lee? So
Yes, it's definitely been the shortest one I've been at.
Oh. I don't know if it's a record, is it, Yuli?
Yes, it can be a record.
Excellent. Okay, with that, thank you, everyone, and the hearing is closed, and I appreciate everybody's attendance for this evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.